50% of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank still support Hamas's barbaric attacks on October 7th, according to a new poll from the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research. Billy, what did you find most interesting about this new poll?
I mean, it's insane to see that half of the respondents are saying this was the right thing to do. I think I had to pull back a little bit, though, and I had to ask myself, what is going on in terms of informational flow? Are people fully aware of what actually happened on October 7th? Do they understand the gravity of it? Are they being given that information? Is it being restricted? Because it's hard to imagine that human beings with brains who are fully aware of what happened that day, the horrific attack from Hamas on Israel, would walk away and say, oh, this was the right thing to do. So I think we're probably dealing with a pretty high level of, media crackdown, of informational control in those areas. But the one thing that is interesting is that those proportions, that 50% is actually down from 54% last September and 71% in March of 2024. It's hard to believe that it was at 71 at one point.
Yeah. Well, for me, this gets a little personal because obviously, Billy, I've spent a significant amount of my life over there. And I say this with sadness. This isn't something I'm excited to report, but this actually doesn't shock me at all. Not to wade into something I probably shouldn't, but famously a few weeks ago, Joe Rogan had Douglas Murray and Dave Smith, the comedian, on to basically debate the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And kind of the viral moment was when Dave admitted that he'd never been there. And Douglas Murray was like, "You've never been there?" And Dave was like, "Yeah, who cares? Like, it's not a big deal." I think it actually is a big deal. And as someone who's been there many, many times, I've seen this up close and personal, and you cannot understand it unless you've been there. There's a Palestinian refugee camp called Dheisheh right outside Bethlehem. And I've been there many times. I have, close friends that live there. And unless you see it with your eyes, you don't believe it. Like there are murals all over this place of quote unquote martyrs, people who killed innocent Israelis in suicide bombings and stabbing rampages. And they're just plastered all over this place. It's kind of like they're the LeBron James of this area. And it's like, you don't understand. It's just different over there. I have a buddy, an Israeli buddy named Micah Avni. Look him up if you don't believe me what I'm saying. And his dad was brutally murdered by a Palestinian man named Ba Alian. Again, if you think I'm making this up, I wish I was. But the Palestinian Boy Scouts, the Palestinian Scout Association, renamed its leadership training course after the guy who murdered my friend's dad. This isn't a facade. I'm not making any of this up. This is the norm over there. There's such unbelievable levels of indoctrination that these numbers, unfortunately, do not surprise me at all. There's a million more examples I could give, but let me show you this one clip from Al-Aqsa TV of a children's programming for Palestinian kids. Take a look.
أنا سمعت هم بيجوا عليكم كل يوم. بس هسه لا. طيب اسمع يا صديقي، اعمل ايدك هيك. مخيم. لما يجوا عندكم اضربهم بوكس. خلي وجهه بنضاره. والله عشان نحرر فلسطين.
ليش حابة تصيري شرطية؟ ليش؟ زي مين؟
زي
عمو. مين عمو؟
أحمد.
هو شرطي؟ شو بيسوي طب الشرطي؟
بحبس الحرامي واللي بيعمل مشاكل.
وبطخ اليهود صح؟ انت بدك تصيري زيه؟ ان شاء الله لما تكبري.
لما طخ اليهود.
كلهم؟ كلهم؟ طيب.
So for me, the question is, what does it mean to be pro-Palestinian? And maybe we can get into that in a second, Billy. But what do you think about the fact that the number is actually going down? What do you think that says, especially in Gaza? The number is now only 38% of Gazans believe that October 7th was a good idea. So that's a drop. What compared to 59% of Palestinians in the West Bank. So people in Gaza, Palestinians in Gaza, favor October 7th less. So what do you think that's saying?
I think it's saying that the truth is finding a way to leak through, whether that is, through Israel finding means of getting the truth through, or people's own experience. I mean, let's think about this. If you are looking at a situation, I can't remember a war in which one party, the party that's going to go in and respond and attack an area and go after Hamas, in this case, Israel, would drop leaflets letting people know, hey, it's going to happen on this day. You need to get to safety, right? That doesn't happen in war, and yet it happened here. Again and again, you had examples of Israel trying to, and nobody's perfect. No country in this world is perfect. We're all human beings. We all have sin. But the point is trying to warn people and minimize the casualties throughout this. That happened again and again and again. And then you have Hamas building, tunnels under schools and hospitals, doing all of these things that actually harm their own people, that harm the Palestinians. At some point, even if you're being indoctrinated, when your eyes are looking at what's happening in front of you, you start to say, wait a minute, the people who are in charge here are actually putting us in danger, harming us, and doing damage to us. And so I do think there's an element, and that's why that number is coming down, of people recognizing, for whatever reason, what actually is going on here.
Yeah, and to me, the deeper question is, what does it mean to be pro-Palestinian? I would consider myself to be pro-Palestinian, pro-Israeli, but what does that mean? And I think when you talk to a lot of Palestinians, the answer isn't just being anti-Israel. I'll give you a couple of examples. I have a lot of friends, a lot of Palestinian friends that will not, would love to, but cannot appear on this video. I have to say this carefully. I have a friend who recently had to flee the area, move across the world. I'm not sure much more I can say because of basically his views. I have another friend who lives,
Wow.
I mean, I can't be too specific, who has very just nuanced views, not even pro-Israel, but just nuanced views. Some of them Christian, some of them not. And just expressing those views would put themselves in danger. I have friends, Palestinian friends, who live no longer in the area, who say, hey, I would love to speak, but I still have family members left in the area. And if I gave my political opinions, they'd be in danger. And I find that very frustrating on my end because I want to tell their story, but totally understandable. I've had to meet with Palestinian friends. I'm not kidding you, Billy. Who literally had to meet me in the dark at night because they were scared to walk around parts of certain areas because they were known. It was known of them, their views that didn't fit the narrative. And so to me, what does it mean to be pro-Palestinian? I think it means speaking the truth and understanding just how complex and nuanced this situation is. And also understanding that why is it that only, and this phrase is just unfortunately true for those of you who are watching this, absolutely hate Israel. Unless the phrase is true, no Jews, no news. Where are you with the genocide of Christians in Nigeria? Where are you with the beheading of Christians in the Democratic Republic of Congo? Where were you when the Alawites were massacred in Syria, or the Druze are under attack in Syria? Just thing after thing, situation after situation. And, in India, when a bunch of tourists were massacred, not even that long ago, where were you? No campus protests, no hashtags, no nothing. It's literally radio silence. But in Israel, if an IDF soldier pushes someone, it's front page news. And I'm not excusing. There are plenty of things that, as a Bible believing Christian that Israel does, that I'm like, what's going on here? Why are you guys supporting Azerbaijan instead of Armenia? Like there's a myriad of things where like I'm not, there's a myriad of things I don't support the United States about. But this obsession with Israel is something that I don't think is pro-Palestinian. And I think there's just a lot of things that, I could go on for days about like why are the Palestinian people the only people on planet Earth that pass on the title refugee? You inherit the title refugee. The only people on planet Earth that happens to. We're now, the refugees from 1948 are sometimes the sons, grandsons, and great-grandchildren of people that actually were refugees. That's the only people group on planet Earth that can pass on the refugee status. So there's just a lot of things I think are being added into this pot. But I think personally, Billy, people ask me, how do we solve this? It's one name. It's the name Yeshua. I don't know any other name that can fix this. So to be pro-Palestinian, to be pro-Israeli, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem means lifting up the name of Yeshua, Jesus, high. And man, Lord, I pray that hearts that are hardened, both sides that are bitterness and resentment, that the name of Jesus would just penetrate the situation, because I think that's the only solution. So, Billy, I'll give you the last word, my friend.
It is absolutely the only solution. And I think, too, making sure that for Christians who are watching this, that we understand that this is not, and I guess for everyone, this is not just a temporal issue. I feel like we've said this in every video because we have to keep reminding ourselves and everyone else that this is a spiritual issue, that these issues that are going on are not new. And one of the reasons the answers to the questions you pose are so difficult is because it doesn't really make sense factually. None of it really does, because there's a spiritual dynamic here and there's a hatred that extends beyond anything that's normative or that we can really understand through our material lens, right? It goes much deeper than that. And we see this in Ephesians. We see it throughout scripture. We've seen what has happened to the Hebrews and the Jewish people throughout history. And so that is what we saw on October 7th. And we're continuing to see that hatred be passed on. It is encouraging to see the number go down. The last thing I'll say is it's still pretty horrific that it's at 50%.
Billy, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.